good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, a legend, retired Hall of Famer, iconic superstar boxer, one of the four kings, Sugar Ray Leonard, finished his career 36 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw, 25 wins by way of knockout, 5'9" with a 70.5-inch arm reach. Sugar Ray Leonard, he gives his thoughts on who he believes is most comparable to himself. Sugar Ray Leonard is an icon. Don't let the 3 losses and a draw on his resume confuse you. The 2 losses at the end of his career to Hector Camacho and the Terry Norris, those are coming off of long layoffs. The Terry Norris fight was off a 2-year layoff, and the Hector Camacho fight, that was off a 6-year layoff. He retired after the loss to Terry Norris in 91. Then he came back in 1997 and challenged Hector Camacho, and he lost a TKO. Sugar Ray Leonard had plenty of hiatuses in his career. You look at Sugar Ray Leonard, from the time he beat Roberto Duran back in June of 1980. He fought Roberto Duran again in a rematch. That was his first loss. He lost to Roberto Duran, as we all know, unanimous decision. But he immediately fought Roberto Duran November of 1980. And that's the infamous No Mas fight. Then he fought a year later against Larry Bonds, okay? The very next year. Well, 4 or 5 months later against Larry Bonds, okay? Then he faced off in June. That was in March of 81. And then in June of 81, he fought Kalu. He got a TKO. Then he fought in September of 81. He fought Tommy Hitman Hearns in the biggest fight at that time. And he got a TKO victory in unification bout. Then he fought against, in February of the next year, he fought Bruce Finch. And then he took another 2-year hiatus, and he came back and he fought Kevin Howard in 82. Okay? In 84, excuse me. So in 82, he fought Bruce Finch. And then in 82, he came back, he fought Kevin Howard for a 2-year hiatus. Then we know he went on a 3-year hiatus after he suffered that eye injury that was initially suffered in the Tommy Hearns fight. And he came back and he fought Marvelous Marvin Hagler, another legend, in April of 87. So a 3-year hiatus. Then he fought again in November of 88 against Donnie Lundell. Okay, so another year hiatus. Then he took another year hiatus. He came back in June and he fought Tommy Hearns in a draw. That's where the draw came from. And most people, they would agree Tommy Hearns, he won that fight. And then he fought in December of that year, Roberto Duran. He won a unanimous decision. That's when he went on another hiatus, 2 years, to fought Terry Norris, took a 6-year hiatus, came back and fought Hector Camacho. So there was a lot of breaks in the career of Leonard. He had suffered a lot of injuries and things of that nature. But when Sugar Ray Leonard was asked, who most resembles him? Who most reminds him of him? Who does he compare himself to when he looks at today's time? And Sugar Ray Leonard, shockingly, he says, undefeated, unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion superstar boxer, who is widely considered by many to be top 3 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, in Errol the True Spence Jr. 27 wins, no losses, no draws, 21 big wins by way of knockout, 31 years of age, 5'9.5", with a 72-inch arm reach. Now, Sugar Ray Leonard, he stood at 5'9" with a 70-inch arm reach. And Errol Spence is a southpaw. Sugar Ray Leonard is the orthodox fighter. So with that said, Sugar Ray Leonard seemed to have way faster hands than Errol Spence Jr. And he's just more explosive with his athletic ability than Errol Spence Jr. But nonetheless, Sugar Ray Leonard, he says that Errol Spence Jr. is the guy that most reminds him of him, that most resembles him when he looks at today's current climate of the sport of boxing. Well, this is shocking because, and the reason it's shocking is because Sugar Ray Leonard, he picked 4-division world champion Mexican superstar boxer Mikey Garcia to beat Errol Spence. And his reasoning for picking Mikey Garcia was simply because Mikey Garcia is Mikey Garcia. He didn't have much of an explanation as to why he was picking Mikey Garcia to beat Errol Spence Jr. Okay? Now, what's shocking is Mikey Garcia was 39 wins with no losses and no draws going into the fight with Errol Spence Jr. Okay? And Errol Spence, he beat Mikey Garcia pretty handily. And most people, Mikey Garcia now, 40 wins, 2 losses, no draws, 30 wins by way of knockout, 34 years of age, 5'6" with a 68-inch arm reach. At that time, I can understand Mikey Garcia was considered top 5 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. 39 wins, no losses, no draws. Okay? And then you got to look, he had 30 wins by way of knockout. And he was top 5, 4-division world champion, Mexican superstar boxer who was a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter. But Sugar Ray Leonard, he simply picked Mikey Garcia because he stated, well, Mikey Garcia is a better boxer and he's just Mikey Garcia. And so Errol Spence, he dominated Mikey Garcia in dominating fashion, just outboxed Mikey Garcia. And most people, they expected Errol Spence to win the fight. And if Errol Spence had won the fight, it would be largely due in part to his size, simply because he's 3 inches taller than Mikey Garcia. He has a 4-inch arm reach advantage over Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia started his career at a lower weight class. He moved up in weight. But Sugar Ray Leonard, he says that Errol Spence reminds him most of him. Errol Spence he has a mega fight on his hands with undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the number 1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terence Crawford. 38 wins, no losses, no draws. 29 big wins by way of knockout. 34 years of age. 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. With that said, they make for the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. A lot of similarities to this Errol Spence-Terence Crawford fight. Because a lot of people, they peg Sugar Ray Leonard as avoiding Tommy Hitman Hearns at one point in time in his career. It got to a point where Tommy Hearns was calling him out. Emmanuel Stewart, late great, legendary, well-renowned trainer, Hall of Fame trainer. They were calling out Sugar Ray Leonard. The fans were calling for Sugar Ray Leonard to face off against Tommy Hitman Hearns. And they felt as if Sugar Ray Leonard, he was avoiding Tommy Hitman Hearns. After he beat Roberto Duran in a no-mas fight back in 1980, everybody started to call for Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard for undisputed showdown. At that time, there was just the WBC and the WBA titles that were the major sanction belts. The IBF hasn't made its name known as a major sanction belt, and the WBO wasn't even in existence. So with that said, everybody were calling for Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns. And they were saying that, well, Sugar Ray Leonard is avoiding Tommy Hearns. He was the hitman. He was knocking everybody out. He was tall. He was rangy with power, boxing ability, resemblance to Terence Crawford. Now, obviously, Terence Crawford, he's just not as tall as Tommy Hitman Hearns. Tommy Hearns was 6'1" with a 78-inch arm reach. But Terence Crawford, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. Extremely long arms. Now, Tommy Hearns, legend, Hall of Famer, 61 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw, 48 wins by way of knockout. Legend, icon. And so people were saying that Tommy Hearns was the guy to beat Sugar Ray Leonard. He was that guy. He had the power. He had the boxing ability. And they finally fought. And just as everybody was expecting, Tommy Hearns was outboxing Sugar Ray Leonard, surprisingly. Most people didn't expect Tommy Hearns to be outboxing Sugar Ray Leonard. They expected him to knock out Sugar Ray Leonard. And Tommy Hearns, to everybody's surprise, was outboxing Sugar Ray Leonard. September 16th, 1981. He was outboxing Sugar Ray Leonard. And we know he had the power, hitting him with big power punches. Jab. Sugar Ray Leonard had a hard time getting around the jab. And eventually, Sugar Ray Leonard's trainer, well-renowned trainer, Hall of Fame trainer, told Sugar Ray Leonard, "You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." And once he told Sugar Ray Leonard that, "You're blowing it, son," Sugar Ray Leonard eventually got a TKO victory over Tommy the Hitman Hearns to become undisputed. Legendary fight. And that's what's on the cusp for Errol Spence and I was getting ready to say Tommy Hearns and Terence Bud Crawford. A lot of similarities. Sugar Ray Leonard was the golden boy. He was the one that couldn't do no wrong. The golden smile. Tommy Hearns was viewed as the hitman. Terence Crawford, last 9 opponents, knockouts. Right? Rangy. So there's a lot of similarities. So it's surprising to hear Sugar Ray Leonard say Errol Spence is the guy. And he pegs Errol Spence to beat Terence Bud Crawford. Edge him out. Great fight. Can't wait to see it. So let's see how this all unfolds. Well, Errol Spence, he has a unification bout. So Errol Spence, like Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard, fought for undisputed. Well, Errol Spence, he beats Cuban star boxer, who's the WBA World Boxing Association's welterweight super champion, Yordenis Ugas. 27 wins, 4 losses, no draws, 12 wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'9", with a 69.5-inch arm reach. Yordenis Ugas is a unification bout. See, the difference between then and today's time is that there was only 2 major sanction belts. Today, you have to collect all 4. So Errol Spence, he gets past Yordenis Ugas, which looked like it's going to take place February or March. Once he gets past that fight, well, Terence Crawford, Errol Spence for undisputed is the fight to be made. Isn't that something? But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue, Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.
This is Amanda, the Real Deal Serrano, and you're watching Blue Blood Sports TV.